Ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good day to you, wherever this may find you. My name is Mark Drax, and I'm speaking today on behalf of SASH, and I have the great pleasure of interviewing Chanel, who you can see probably on the other screen right now. Chanel, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure, Chanel. Would you like to formally introduce yourself and just so the audience know exactly who I'm talking to?
Sure. My name is Chanel Jolly Marshall. I am based out of Washington, D.C. in the United States, and I'm a sexologist, sex researcher, sex educator, all things sex and sexuality.
Fantastic. All things sex and sexuality. You know, you say that so relaxedly and casually. No, that's great. That's what this is about. I love it. Thank you, Chanel Wilson. A warm welcome. We are talking to you. I am talking to you on behalf of SASH today because you are going to be speaking at our conference later this year, which is very exciting. And today I've just got 4 little questions to ask you. And the whole purpose is to give our audience a little teaser as to what they can expect in October. So if that's all right with you, I'm going to kick off with my 4 questions. Is that cool?
I'm ready.
Fantastic. You look it. I've got my screen, my questions on the other screen here. So if I look left, I promise you I'm not looking at my emails. I'm reading questions.
No problem.
All right. So Chanel, I'd love you if you could tell us about your topic. The title of your talk is going to be Sex Talk, Investigating the Sexual Development and Sexual Attitudes of African American Women. A beautiful, fascinating topic. Tell us about it.
Sure. It started out being really curious about how my friends, really started out with my friends, how they were learning about sex and sexuality. Because based on the conversations we were having, I was like, where did you get that from? I wonder where you learned that, things like that. So it kind of sparked a fire in me to figure out how are we learning about sex and sexuality, and based on how we learn, our attitudes and behaviors towards sex and sexuality. So I'm figuring out, okay, if you learn this way, does it make you, kind of lean towards a certain ideology or not? What impact or lack of sex education has on your life? So it kind of started that way. And so I start from a historical standpoint, so we can figure out where we were and where we are, if there are differences, if there are similarities, things like that. So it's been really exciting, and able to pull out a lot of different themes that apply to every ethnicity, every gender. I just happen to focus on, African descendant women, but I'm learning that these themes apply across the board.
Beautiful. Would you, in what you're discovering so far, would you say there are any key differences between the sexual issues relevant to African American women versus the sexual issues related to other women, Caucasian women, Indian women, and any other women? Are you noticing any big differences?
Absolutely. I think the difference is, if you're talking about it from a historical standpoint, colonization was that major turning point. When you're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, that
Yes.
completely shifted Black women's sexuality completely. And so then you have this conflict of knowing some historical or feeling the historical rituals and things that where you come from, fighting with this new ideology that's coming in. And so then you have the people who have children. And so now they're passing along mixed messages, and then the world is changing. There are more barriers and more feelings of having to assimilate into society to be accepted, or at least more acceptable, which changes your behavior and changes your attitude and makes you maybe less willing to be your full self or explore things because you need to fit into the society, keep a low profile, just keep moving along. So I found those things to be kind of the things that stood out a lot. And there's still a lot of conflict between these ideologies even today in 2021.
Amazing. And so if I'm, can you tell me if I'm right? So what I'm hearing you say is that slavery and everything related to that tragic time of humanity repressed African American sexuality. Is that an accurate statement?
That would be accurate. Yeah.
So it made you very fearful, obviously.
Yeah, a lot, if you think about it, and not to get into my whole spiel or anything, but if you think about it, a lot of the first sexual experiences of enslaved women were traumatic. So
Yes,
if
of
that
course.
is your foundation, then that is what you know, and that's what you're teaching. So, you know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's a trickle down effect that I speak about a lot. Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. A very powerful topic, and especially at the moment, with
Yeah.
the world still coming to terms with the fact that really slavery in some people's minds is not dead, and that is a deeply disturbing fact.
Yeah.
So this couldn't be more relevant at the moment. Thank
Yeah.
you. Um, why is this topic, in your opinion, so important to sexual health?
Absolutely, because it ties into so many different areas of life. We tend to separate sex from the rest of our being, but it is in everything we do, right? Um, and so I don't care if you're a religious person, non religious, I don't care what you do, sex and sexuality is going to be there somewhere. And so it's important for me specifically because I am of this community and I have seen firsthand how the impact of sex education or lack thereof, fear based messaging, things like that, how it directly impacts your sexual self and how it kind of spills out into other areas. If you're fearful in one area, sometimes that carries over into you not going for a job or going for an opportunity or things like that, or just kind of second guessing yourself. And whether you're able to separate that or not, it still impacts you in other areas of life. So it's really important, also for people to get out of their own heads and realize that, hey, maybe I thought about this thing this way. Let me open my mind up to another way of thinking about it. So, if nothing else, I just want people to realize what foundation they're standing on.
That's so powerful. And I was talking to a friend. You've triggered a very strong memory. Just in the last month, I was talking to a female friend of mine, and we were having a very fun, open conversation about sex and sexuality. And she's not in a program and hasn't, to my knowledge, ever suffered sexually, but she certainly has. She's got some very broad, open-minded views on sex and sexuality. And she told me, as a woman, that she has found it enormously empowering across all aspects of her life, especially in work. And she's in a very successful, high-paid, high-responsibility job in the beauty industry, funnily enough. And she's done extremely well. She's an amazing lady, commands a lot of people. And she said she found it so much easier to step up in that world and stand in her own skin when she started feeling, and she's now early 40s, when she started feeling much more sexual and feeling as though she had a right to be sexual, to enjoy her sexuality. And she explores this with her husband, and they have a very good marriage, I'm happy to say. I know them both very well. And that has transmitted to her a much greater sense of power in front of all the men she has to deal with in her business, in her working life. And so she said that the link between sex and sexuality and overall confidence, in her opinion, is huge. And that, if I'm not mistaken, that's what you've just said.
Absolutely. It's huge. And I think the word you picked out was empowerment,
Yeah.
right? And I think people sometimes confuse like being sexually empowered to having sex with all the people all the time. No. That is just knowing who you are and feeling comfortable, like you said, in your own skin. That's the piece that translates over. That does not mean that you're doing all the things, all that. And if that's what you want to do, I'm personally here for it. Do what you want to do safely with enthusiastic consent, whatever. But it's the empowerment piece that carries over. So that's the underlying theme, if you will, that I think applies across the board, whether you are a woman of African descent or not. That's the piece that I want people to grasp onto, if nothing else, you know? Yeah.
Well, fun enough, you've just led on to the next question very beautifully. Thank you for that. Because
You're
my
welcome.
next question is, what would you like people that visit and listen to this topic, what would you like them to take away for themselves?
Absolutely. Partially, I want you to reflect on your own um, background, your own um, personal background, your sex education background. Figure out, like, and I ask in the presentation, like, what was missing? What are the gaps there? What could have helped you, in your sexual journey to be a little more empowered, a little more sure, or whatever that is for you. So that's really important. And to also center, like, I speak about Black women specifically, and I do that intentionally, because I think that um, we forget. We forget about the impact of trauma. We forget about um, the impact of enslavement, and we think it was so long ago. We think, Jim Crow was so long ago. Like, my parents are still here and they experienced that. You know what I mean? It wasn't that long ago. I'm born in the 80s. That wasn't that long ago. We think things are so long ago because we see black and white pictures. It wasn't that long ago. So just to kind of bring it back, like, this is still really relevant, even though it feels like it was a long time ago. It really wasn't, and people are still being impacted today.
It's interesting. You talk about black and white pictures,
Hmm.
and technology has advanced the hell of a lot quicker than human attitude, very sadly. And we are stuck with the legacy of colonialism, the slave trade. In my
Hmm.
country, we're stuck with Victorian attitudes,
Hmm.
which massively crippled an entire generation. 2 world wars, where
Yes.
people had to just go into bunkers and hide away for decades.
Yeah.
And finally, when they came out into the summer of love and through the late 60s,
Hmm.
is it any surprise that people went crazy? They'd had decades of oppression and suppression,
Right.
and suddenly
Right.
it's like, let to be blunt, let's take our clothes off and have some fun
Yes.
for it.
Right.
Unfortunately, though, we are left, and of course, let's not forget religion. I need to tread very carefully here because I shall mention no specific religion, but that
Right.
religion in general
Yeah.
has not exactly helped sex.
Definitely speak about that. And I also do the disclaimer, right? Like, I am not coming for anyone. I am not down, degrading anyone's religion. And also, comma, we need to realize how much religion has impacted, everything. But when I'm talking about sexuality specifically, yeah, it definitely has impacted. Yeah.
If you compare the Victorian bathing suit to the modern bathing suit, they're just a little bit different. So yeah,
Little. Yeah.
so whether it's religion or royalty or whatever it is, so much has impacted our ability to feel free in our bodies. And so it
Absolutely.
is incredible for someone like you to be standing up and being counted and saying there is nothing wrong with feeling you. And this is what I do with my clients, with my male clients who so often have huge repression
Yeah.
around themselves, their masculinity, their femininity, because let's not forget that every man has a feminine side. They
Yeah.
don't want to admit it, but what if they could? The world would be a hell of a lot of a nicer place.
I know.
Yeah. Chanel, it's such fun talking to you. I have no doubt this topic is going to go down so well at our conference, and I'm so grateful. I got one more question for you, which is more about you actually. Where can people find you next? Do you have anything you'd like to share with our audience about what you're doing? Are you writing anything? Are you talking anywhere? Are you going to be anywhere? So, what exciting things are on your horizon?
Well, the most recent exciting thing is I was just admitted into a human sexuality PhD program that
Amazing.
I start in the fall. So I am still kind of in shock. But I am quite excited about this new journey because it'll just allow me to delve even deeper into what I already love. So yeah, I start in the fall doing that PhD program, and of course I'll be still here and there speaking. But I know school will probably take up the majority of my focus, at least initially, so I can figure out my footing. But otherwise, I still do HIV testing with the health system in the DC area. Still doing speaking engagements, some guest lecturing at universities. So a busybody, pretty much, but doing the thing I love to do.
Chanel, is there a website you would like to advertise so people might be able to look you up?
Absolutely. They can find me at www.jaalico.com, and that is JAALICO.com.
Fantastic. Beautiful. Chanel, it has been such fun talking to you. You have a lovely, radiant way about you. You're clearly very comfortable in yourself, and this obviously is what you teach and preach. So beautiful. Thank you for being with us today. Any closing comment?
I'm just really excited to, be a part of SASH, and we'll see what happens.
Amazing. Well, we will see you in Seattle around the 14th of October.
Yes, thank you so much.
Now, bless you. A huge hug from across the pond, and we'll see you a little later in the year. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Take great care.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right, you see?
It's
easy and tough. That is such fun. You are such fun.
Thank you.
I love doing these things because I get to meet people. It means when I do finally get to see you in Seattle, we'll be old friends.
I know, right?
So I'm glad I get to do this. It's such fun.
That's so fun. Yeah. I bet you've met some interesting characters.
I have some fantastic conversations, and I love to inject my own perspective. Like when you shared about how empowering sex can be beyond the bedroom. I absolutely had this conversation with some friends of mine. This is 2 or 3 weekends ago. They were staying with me, and we got into a really deep, fun, fascinating conversation on Saturday night. And it was all about that. And this friend of mine, she's a very senior lady at a very senior, but very spectacular company, multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
Done so well to rise up as far as she has in a world which, of course, is still dominated by men.
Yeah.
And she said it's incredible how the sexual exploration that she's enjoyed with her husband empowers her to stand in her shoes and feel yummy and sexy, and therefore to radiate a positive and strength. And that's how I think that's in no small part how she's got as far as she has. So it's good to hear you talking about that.
That's so awesome. I love that. And it takes work. Like, people see these people who just seem to be effortless. Like, you have to work at that.
Oh, yeah.
You have to, and it's a constant, like, checking yourself. I mean, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It looks good on the other side, but it's a whole thing. But it's so worth it, though. It's so worth it,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Chanel, this has been such fun. You take great care. Keep safe over there. I hope you have a lovely summer, and I'll see you in the fall.
Yeah, see you in the fall. Thank you so much.
Chanel, such a pleasure. You take great care. Bye for now. God bless.
Bye. Bye.